can see we got a bunch of sounds here. It's a male vocal, female vocal, sax, bass line, guitar. I'm just hitting the pads here so I get an idea what I want to use here in this actual. Okay, let's get busy. Okay, what's up? It's me, Doc again. How you doing? Thanks again for purchasing another one of our DVDs. This DVD is about the art of sampling. We're going to talk about how to chop the sample up, tune it, put it in the zones, cut the zones up, chop those zones up, put them into programs where there's sounds all over the machine, how to pitch change, how to also tune a sample, what time compression really does, how to pitch shift a sample, merging samples together to make your own new sample, and adding effects to samples. These are important things that we've been doing that you've been hearing on the radio, and you want to know how to do it. Well, here, I'm going to teach you how to do it. Here it is. Now, you may want to get the beginning of the whole loop. Now, in order to loop a sample, you have got to get the exact beginning of a sample. Now, most samples will allow you to do this when you go to your start time or the edit point. Here on the MPC, we can move this cursor and move the beginning of it. See the beginning right over here, move right here on this side of our sample? Now I'm hitting the pad, triggering the sample. Let me widen it up here, you can get an idea what I'm doing. Here I'm right here. I'm trying to trigger the sample. Now, that's the beginning that I might want to use. I just want one bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is boop, 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 boop. I know I want to go right to about here. So next, I'll move my cursor to the end point and move everything back right to where I want my sample to be at. See, that's too much. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Again, I want a 1 bar loop. So I'll move the cursor back a little more to get the right size. So I'm going right to that, we call a transient, that little peak and valley. That peak right there I'm going to. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I got that one piece I want to get. Now it's important to know where you want your loop to start from. I prefer to start my loops, my most basic loops, from the very beginning of the sample to the section that I actually want to get to. It's very important for me to actually do it that way. It makes it easier for me to understand I'm going to start from the 1 of the beat. And I can also get the other half if I'd like to and make this a separate sample if I wanted to, and have 2 unique samples. Now, a lot of samples allow you the ability to actually loop the sound in this, what we call edit mode. Now, on this machine, we can press loop and turn loop on or off. I can turn it on here in this case. I want to probably take this to the very end. I'll punch in number 0, and I'll have this section here going. I'll hold the button down, plays the whole thing through. Now watch this. See a little gap there, see that? That's because I went back to the top right here. See this here? That piece is there is playing also at the same time. So I'm in loop mode here. So I'll turn the beginning back. A little bit more. I'm cutting some of it off, so I want to go back further and get the beginning. Now, a lot of samples allow you to see even better. The best thing to do is get a window open, and you can see the actual waveform. See this here? I can see the waveform itself up closer now. I can zoom in or zoom out. It's important for you to see what sample piece you want to get when looking at a sample. Now, a lot of times cats will chop up records and they want to get a kick or a snare from a record or something like that. And what a lot of samplers do, they allow you to have this zoom feature so you can pick the exact piece you want to get from the sample. Now, in this case, that's when I get that bump on the beginning of that bass drum, which is right there. Now I'll close the window. Now, a lot of samples also you can actually move your cursor view. As you can see here, I'm in the 2. I'm going to go to the end. The end right there. And I go to open my window, and here we can see the end of the sample. See that? That says the end, and this is the fine look at it. I can go zoom in closer, and now I see what the problem is. I want to go closer to the very end of the sample, right here where it's at, right on that piece right there. And that's looping right. I like that. Close the window, and now I have the exact size of the sample I want. Now, when you get the right part and the exact size you want, I generally want to cut off the beginning and cut off the end if I don't want these pieces here, and get the right size of my sample. Now, once I get the right size of the sample, sometimes I may want to keep the rest of this and chop off a piece, like get this boop boop a doop at the end here and use it as a fill somewhere. So what I might do is I may want to take this whole section I like here, which I'll play back again, and use that section alone, but keep the rest of the sample. On the MPCs, you can actually go edit, and we'll say we want to take this section here and make a new section and give it a new name, which will be beat 71 in this case. I can press do it, and now we have this sample, as you can see, is drawing the waveform out, and we got just one here. We'll play it again. And we've got this exact sample. I've got it here on loop mode, as you can see, but that's what I want. I took that sample from the original sample, which is beat 70. As you can see here, here's beat 70. I still have this entire sample intact. So now I can use this section, or make a copy of this section, or make a copy of this little loop piece here and insert it where I want to insert it. It's what we call chopping the beat up. If you want to chop a beat up, that's how we would chop the beat up. We'd find sections we want to get out of this beat. Now we're going to do zones. A lot of the new samplers today, you can actually take a sample and put it into zones. The motif does it, and so do the MPCs. You'll be able to take that sample, and when you go to edit, you can edit and go to zone. It'll put those samples into a zone. That means each section will be cut up into a small sample piece. On the MPC 2000 XL, you can actually take those zones and make them into a program. Now, a program contains many samples. You can have a snare drum, a hi-hat, a horn hit, a bass line, a little guitar, but you have to make sure those samples are accurate, and when they are in the zone, try to adjust your zone. Check this out. Now, some guys say they chop the beat up and do all this kind of stuff to a beat. Generally, on the MPC, particularly in MPC 2000, it will do it automatically for you. Now watch this. You can press zone, and here in zone, the MPC, you see we have our cursor here on the zone section, right there, has predetermined zones. I'll turn my jog wheel back a little bit. I'll turn this wheel here. And you can see it has sections designed right there. Now here we have a button that's right below here, which will activate this feature right here, which says Play X. And here on the top says X means oil. Well, I'll move my cursor up here. I just want to play the zone. Move the cursor down. Go to X. A kick drum there. The next zone. A little hi-hat. The next zone. See that? A little open hi-hat up to where that next kick starts. Next zone. The next zone. So what happens on the MPC, it actually makes up these zones. Now a lot of times the zones don't actually go in the exact piece you want. But if you get a piece right there you like, what I normally do, I can adjust that zone. I go to here and adjust the zone to what I want it to be. That zone could be this one section right here. Might like that with the hi-hat on top. It has a little flavor to it. Now in hip hop, a lot of cats will take samples and don't have samples with some sort of flavor to it, where it's got like a little piece of a tail or something. And they may chop that one piece up and use it in the song as part of a sample on top of another sample or within a beat. So it adds a flavor. It's got a kick drum there and a little open hi-hat. Now I'll play the zone. See that? And that could be a kick drum in your track. Sometimes a guy will use that as a kick and pick a snare from the loop and add their own drums on top of it. That way, they get a different flavor to their drum sound. So you can make any one of these zones be what you want them to be. You can say, I want the zone to be this particular parameter. Move your cursor over to the start time. Move it back. I want to get a piece of actual beginning right here of this zone. Play the zone. Same thing. See that? This is a different feel to the zone 11 I had before. See, a little darker than that one. You can pick whichever zone you think is the best zone to use. Always compare your zones. Not all kicks sound the same in a sample. In this case, we're going to make sure that all these zones are exactly the way we want them. And that's how I chop a whole beat up. You can go here. I'm going to press the edit window. And this is our slice. Now this will slice the entire sound up. See? And margin is 30. We can create new program. I put down yes. I'll press do it. And now it's made this whole sample into separate little slices that are in a program. Now in MPC, a program are a bunch of sounds that are in place on pads. Okay, now it took those samples, put them in a program. I'll press shift and program. In this case, in the MPC, a program contains a lot of samples that fit the pads. Now I have each sound right here on these pads. Now watch this. So I'm playing each pad at a time. One. Each sound has been cut up into a zone. Each zone is put in each one of these pads. And that's how we can chop up a sample automatically. That's really cool. A trick we used to use back in the old days, I would use my MPC 2000 XL and I would go through a sample, let's say a loop. I would find out where the snare drums were. I'd take the zone, go to that particular zone, then press edit and reverse the snares and put a new snare on top of it. So I have kind of like a where it reverses. Even reversing the sound's really cool. You can reverse a whole sound anytime you want and get a flavor from that sound itself. Check this out. Now we've got this loop in here. We can actually go to zone again. And here, I'll move the cursor back up and we'll play the zone. See, that's the zone. You can also, which is really cool to do, is to take this piece of a kick drum here and let's say reverse it. Now I'll play the zone. It's reversed. That's zone 11. I can go back up here and move some other zone, which is right here, which is zone 5. I'll play it. Let's try zone 1 actually. Let's reverse zone 1. We'll go to edit. We'll go to reverse and reverse zone 1. Now I'll play the whole sample back. See that? It's got this weird sound. Now when you're actually sampling, you've got to sort of be creative and find ideas that make your sound really hip. In this case, I can reverse those particular zones in this one loop. And sometimes I'll take a kick and put it in place of the zones. Now we've reversed the sound. We can also silence any sound within the sample or the drum loop. In this case, we're going to take a drum loop and say, I don't want those snare drums. Let's silence the snare drums, add new snares, and that way we ain't got to pay a royalty because we put our own stuff on top of it. They can't even find out where we got it from. Don't tell nobody now. It's a secret. Shh. So now I can also unreverse those pieces. I just unreverse number 11 and play back the original sample again. Now a lot of times I'll do stuff like take a snare drum out of a sample and put a different snare drum when I actually play it back after I looped it. Now in this case on MPC, I can go to the next zone, this zone right here, which is zone number 5, which you can see right here. I'll press the zone I want to play, and I can remove that particular snare drum from that part of the sample. Now before I experiment, it's always good to do one thing. You might make a mistake, you might mess up. Go to open window, as you do in most samplers, and try to copy that sample. Make a copy and call it something else. In this case, I want to call this beat number 2. Do it. Then close the window. I have a beat number 2 now. So now I can actually do tricks with this one sample, cut a snare out, or reverse the sound, or add a sound to it, so I can see how it sounds and work with it. If I like it, I can keep it, but I still have my original sample to mess with. And you don't want to get rid of that one, you want to keep that one. Now, I've got my snare here still. As you can see, once you copy a sound, it'll maintain the same zone and loop point. Now to get rid of the snare drums, what I sometimes do is I'll go here and I will silence a section. I'll press do it. As you can see, this snare drum is gone right there. I'll go to my next zone. It's my next snare. I'll go to edit. And I will silence this section. Now I'll play the whole sample back. Now it sounds weird, right? You got some pieces missing. Now what I like to do sometimes is actually replace it with a different snare, or even take a single sample, like this loop for example, and then slice it up all to different sections and put them into a program or into a drum kit. That's always really cool. You can pick whatever piece you want to use from that particular sample and make the loop become your own. Now on the MPC 2000 XL and the MPC 2000, we have this zone thing going on. We also have this trim section. As you can see, it's the trim section. Trim here is ready to go. And we have the length of our sample already lined up here. Now once you got the right sample, you know the size of the sample you want to use, we can go to press loop. We'll go to loop, and we have loop on here. So you have loop on right there. And the reason why I have it on is because I want to see the tempo of this exact sample. I'll press parameters. And see, the MPC tells us that this sample tempo is 103.4. We can make a new tempo of this particular sample. We can move our cursor over here to tuning. See that? We're on tune. And when I turn tune, you see the bottom part here change. It's the new tempo. Play the sample. Now see, it's turning the tuning of the sample. It's like the pitch is changing, and the sample, I'm going to go lower now. I'm going to slower. Now here I'm at 94.3. I'll press play X, and we're slowing the sample. Oh, that's real slow, man. That's so slow. See, that's real slow. But it's dragging to me. See, I don't like that. So sometimes you can't go too far away from the original sample tempo, the original sample. So you can go as far away so it doesn't drag so much. And when it's dragging, it's actually changing the pitch of that sample. Today, a lot of producers are using time stretching and pitch shifting. They will take a sample that, let's say, is slow, speed it up, but keep the same pitch. That way, it fits in the record better, and they can adjust it to the feel you want to have that sample at. This is very important. All the new samplers do it today. A lot of the old ones, like the SB1200, the ASR10, and let's see, what else? S950, they don't time stretch as well. And the S1200 doesn't time stretch at all, actually. But time stretching is really cool. Check this out. I'm going to show you a way we can actually change the speed of the sample without changing the pitch. It's called time compression. Now, most every sample has its feature today. This is very important to understand and to use. This will help you to do the things you might want to do to get that sample at the right speed the artist might want it at, or the speed you feel it would be best to have that sample at, whether it's a vocal sample, a loop from a record, or it's a drum beat. Check this out. First, we'll make a new sample. We'll copy the same sample, and we'll call this new sample beat number 4. Do it. It's copied it, and it named it beat number 4. Now I've got my new sample right here. I want to time stretch this sample. Now some people call it time compression or time stretching. Either way, we want to maintain this pitch, but just lower the speed. We'll press edit. I'm going here to time stretch. Now on the MPC, sometimes it'll automatically say make a new name. The new name of this new time stretch sample will be beat 5. The ratio is 100%. Now I'm leaving it this way because this is used primarily when I just want to time stretch a sample without using BPMs. It's important to have a preset. Now the preset on the MPC 2000 XL is used to get an either not so great sounding time stretch or get the best possible. What happens is the machine has an equation that it uses to make a new sample so it will maintain the same pitch but a faster or slower speed. Now on the MPC, this says low frequency rhythm. A is the preset. We have low freq rhythm B. And we have, oops, let's change it too much there. We have low freq C. There's low frequency rhythm C. I'll press BPM. Now here in BPM, we can change the speed of this sample. I can make it sound, let's see, let's make it sound a little slow. Let's go down to like maybe 85. I'll press do it. And now it's going to process the new sample. The equation is working and it's trying to calculate how to make the sample. Now when you use C, it takes longer than using A or B. And B is longer than A. A is the shortest one. And sometimes I use A just to see how the sample will sound. If I like it, then I will actually go to C and let the machine take its time to make a better sample. Okay, now, here's a new sample, beat 5. See, it's the same pitch, but slower speed. Here's beat 4. See that? That's beat 4. Beat 5. Now before, when you saw us do it, we would change the tuning. And before we would just change the tuning. And you would see it go, slower, it would drag. But with time compression, we keep the same pitch. Now I have this one sound right, this loop. Now, I turn a loop feature off on my sampler. What we want to do now is we want to loop this one drum loop into a sequence so we can add other samples on top of it. Now check this out. Now when looping up a sound sometimes I want to test that sound. And a lot of the samplers today, whether it's an MPC 2000, 3000 or 1000 or a MV 8000 or a motif or Triton have a tap feature where you can tap the tempo in. Let me move back here. And we can tap the tempo in right here on the MPC. This tap button. I would normally just play the sample, get an idea what it's like, and then tap the beat in. 2, 3, 4, 1. And that gets me close to where the sample's at. Now I already know on my MPC that sample's actually 103.4. I want to check where my tap is at. Once I get that, there are several ways to loop it. Okay, here I can go to step edit on my MPC. Now step edit means it's going to be at the first beat, the first bar. Now my levels are full. This is my velocity right here. This is duration, how long the sample was held down, that particular keypad was held down. This is our keypad, which means the pad that I hit. And also, this is 49, which means a note. That's important when using MIDI. So right now, I'm going to make sure I hit the pad in the right step in the sequence. That's a 1-bar loop. So I go to the next bar. This is the second bar. I want to put my sample there also. Close my main screen. Now I know already I've got my sample in the first and second bar. It should loop. Now I'll press play, start. What we can do sometimes also is tap the sample in. the MPC, you can set it for giving you a count off. And we'll press record and play start. We get this metronome going. I click back and forth. Click, 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 click. Now my tempo, as I remember from the earlier section of this DVD, as you can see here, my tempo's right here. I've got it set to 103.4. Next, I want to tap the tempo in. And my sound's right here. I want to come down to 1 where that bap comes in right there. Bap, right there. Here we go. Now it's important to make sure that your beat goes along with that click metronome in the background. That way you know you've got it in time. Now, as you can see here on my setup, I've got several samples. There's a horn, there's a bass, a little guitar, a snare drum, a kick, that's cool, and a vocal. Another vocal. When actually looping up a sound, like a drum loop, I will sometimes, actually most of the time, is use a new kick, maybe add a hi-hat that sounds similar to the one in the sample, and also a snare drum that's either the same or different. All depends on the type of flavor I want to give that sample. I've got my loop going here. Now it's important to know your quantized value when actually sequencing tracks up. In this case, I want to use 16th note triplets. I'll press record and play. Now it's my snare drum. It's kind of off. So you gotta make sure the right quantized value. If you make a mistake, erase it, start over. Okay, now I'm gonna try it again on a new track. I can always record my next piece on another track. Now it's important to make sure that your hi-hat or your snare, once you add it in, fits in with the sample. That's why it's important to have the right tempo along with your sample. Next, I'll add a snare drum. Now, kick drum. And add some more support behind those drums. You can always get different levels or change the sounds, the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, and see how other sounds sound to give that sample a little more boost or a different flavor, or even make it sound like it's a totally different sound to it. I've got a beat here. I took the snare drums out from before. And And then I've got this program I have where it has all the snare drums, all the sounds actually in a zone. Now, as you remember before, that loop, even without the snare drums, is still 103.4. I put it back in my sequence, make sure that's correct. Then next thing I do is I'll press play start. Now you can see that snare drum is missing. Sounds like it's a hole in it. I can add a new snare back in from right here. Then I got a snare drum right here. See that? Right there's a snare drum. From all the pieces I got, I want to use that piece right there. So I'll put the snare back in and add new snares to it. I'll go, let's see, to a new track. And press record and play. I'll change it around a little bit. I want to make sure it's real tight. Make sure my quantized value is set to 16th notes. I want to use other sounds also. So I use the actual original sample that I took the snare drums from. Then I have all these bits and pieces from the actual sample that I used on top of that sample. I made a flavor all my own now. Now here I have one of my samples. I can play it from right here, press my play button. And it cuts off really sharp there. I don't like that. Now on some samplers, you can actually change the fade. I can change the fade out, as you can see here. Here I can adjust this fade out to be as many seconds as I want to. The length of my sample, I can fade in or fade out. So I get more of a natural fade to your sample. Now here, I'm going to set it for about 1 second, 1.78 seconds. So it fades almost naturally. I'll press do it. It'll process my sample, and now I'll play it to see what it sounds like. A little more cutoff to it, so I want to retry again. I might go further into the sample and get it so it fades, it dies a little more naturally, and do it. And I'll play it. That's a little better. Now what I normally do, I'll just fade it on my fader when I'm actually mixing my track. Now sometimes you want to join two samples together. I do this sometimes. I want to make two samples into one long sample instead of having to place them together some other way. Now I'll take the other sample I have here, lower that down a little bit. Baby. I got this one here. So I'll join them together. I'll make that the first sample. I'll go to edit. And in this sampler, we can actually join two samples together. Out of 12, I'll make one 13. Rather 14, sample 14 will merge the sample 12. I'll press do it. And now it'll process it for me. I can play it back. Baby. And you can merge samples together whenever you want to merge them, get the right length, and you can make your own samples up. It's really cool. Now here I have one of my samples. I can play it from right here, press my play button. And it cuts off really sharp there. I don't like that. Now on some samplers, you can actually change the fade. I can change the fade out, as you can see here. Here I can adjust this fade out to be as many seconds as I want to. The length of my sample, I can fade in or fade out. So I get more of a natural fade to your sample. Now here, I'm going to set it for about 1 second, 1.78 seconds. So it fades almost naturally. I'll press do it. It'll process my sample, and now I'll play it to see what it sounds like. A little more cutoff to it, so I want to retry again. I might go further into the sample and get it so it fades, it dies a little more naturally, and do it. And I'll play it. That's a little better. Now what I normally do, I'll just fade it on my fader when I'm actually mixing my track. Now sometimes you want to join two samples together. I do this sometimes. I want to make two samples into one long sample instead of having to place them together some other way. Now I'll take the other sample I have here, lower that down a little bit. I got this one here. So I'll join them together. I'll make that the first sample. I'll go to edit. And in this sampler, we can actually join two samples together. Out of 12, I'll make one 13, rather 14, sample 14 will merge to sample 12. I'll press do it, and now it'll process it for me. I can play it back. Baby. And you can merge samples together whenever you want to merge them, get the right length, and you can make your own samples up. It's really cool. This sample has a beat and an organ on top. Listen to this beat. You can hear there's a beat there in the sample. Now, I like to filter sometimes when I get a sound that sounds kind of crunchy like that, and it's a little bit above the beat, as you can hear. I'm going to go to a filter here on this particular sampler. Now, this is an MPC 4000. And most samples can do this. The new modern ones can actually do this filtering thing or actually EQing this sample. Let me go to my, let's see, I'm going to press this button right here, my program section, and I'm here in my filters, as we can see right here. As you can see here in our filter section. And my filter type is off here. Where's my sample? There it is, right there. Now I'm going to filter it. That's a 2-pole. Hear that change? The difference there? So I can change the sound, then boost it, and the beat is a little bit lower. It's a lot lower, actually. I can still use my sound along with my beat. I want to pick the right EQ I want to use. So you can change it, get a high pass filter. Or notch it out. So we're actually changing the filters here. I may also use it that way. I have a beat here already. Let's see if they have a beat. So I can use a little bit of that sound in a track. Here we're going to mixer on this machine. I'll pick my sound. I may send it to a reverb to boost it some more. And turn the reverb up. And we can get a little effect on top of that sound. Then a lot of times using samples, it's good to be creative. Take that sample, sort of filter it, pitch change it, to get the kind of feel you want to get and to understand how your sampler works. Okay, earlier we took some samples in and then we applied the effect to the samples as we sampled them. Now in this case, I'm going to adjust my effect to the samples that are already in the machine. As you can see, I have a reverb and a chorus on it too, but the reverb is a slight delay. Now I'll play the beat. And I'm going to adjust the effect right here. Now, a real trick to do is to get a girl's vocal. Now, some girls don't sound so great. You know what I mean? They look fine, but they can't sing. But them big ones, oh man, they can sing like, like butterflies. So sometimes you want a girl sound really good. This is going to help you out a lot. You can take that sample and actually pitch shift that sample up of the little vocal she did that did sound good. If that one vocal did sound good and you pitch it up, you'll have two separate vocals. You can combine them together, make sure the right key, and you can make it sound even better. Almost even make a chorus if you make a third one. But this is important. Understand how to pitch shift, because girls love it when they sound good. And you could pitch it up, but leave it the same speed. Now before with time compression, we actually made it a slower or faster speed, but kept the same pitch. This is reverse. Now I've got this really slow beat here, right? I'm going to press edit. And now I'm going to pitch shift this sample. Here's my pitch shift and my adjustment value. I have a preset like I have with the MPC 2000. Now some of the newer machines actually come with presets like the MV8000. The idea here is to try and change the sound of what you're actually listening to by pitching it up but keep the same speed. I'll press, let's go and make it real quickly. I'm going to press like A. It's going to be in percussion at the A preset. This way I'll do it much faster. And now I'll put back the new sound. See? I'll play the old sound. More draggy, but now a lot of cats do this because they want to get a little stronger flavor of the sound the sample they already got in the machine. They just want to pitch it up some more but keep the same speed. This can work for almost anything. We'll retry, we'll cancel. We can pick any sample we want to pick. For example, I can go back to this girl's vocal I have here at the end, where it's, I'll turn that down some. I can go to edit. We can pitch shift her vocal a little bit, just to make you want to get the right pitch of this girl to fit the track. Sometimes, pitch is very important. Make sure her vocal pitch is in the right key along with everything else that you're going to sample or using the sample. We'll go here, set our adjustment to a little bit less than what I had it before, and do it. But this time use a preset, which is going to be a vocal preset. And here's a vocal A. Do it. And now we'll hear the new one. And here's the original. Now they're both the same speed, just different pitches. That's really funky. Now a lot of cats do some really cool things with sampling. I think Primo did some really cool stuff with Guru when they heard his track that was, I forgot the name of the track now. What's the name of that track again? I forget the name of it anyway. It was a track where he had a drum beat behind it, and it went, and what he did was he took the piece of the record where the bass line was and bassed it out. So all you heard was the bass on that one piece of the record. And how you do that is you lower the frequency gain on that one sound. And you can make that sound and put it on your pads, and you can put it in multi-tune and use it like it was an instrument. This is cool. Don't tell nobody now. Get close to the screen, cover it up. Don't tell nobody our secrets. Check this out. Okay, now sometimes what we'll do is that we'll take a sample and bass one of those samples out. For example, hit the first sample. That sounds good. Hit that sample bassed out. You hear how deep that is? You still hear some bass in there, but it's still in the sound. Then we'll move it with the beat. I put the beat on now. Back to here. Now the cool thing there is if you're going to mix it, you can run it through an EQ later on in the mixing system and actually get that sound to be really bassed out. Now what we can actually do sometimes too, as we'll see here on the screen, move this camera back a little bit, we can see here, we're going to go to program right here, and we have the sample right there. See that? Now what I also can do here is I can also assign that sample to trigger another sample at the same time. Check this out. Now as we can see, we have this beat C. Now we're in a zone. Now MPCs are famous for this. You can actually trigger several samples at once. In this MPC 4000, it's 4. And the same in the 3000. I can move down here, move the cursor down here, and then pick the sample I want to zone out. I'm going to pick the other beat I have here. This one here. Now watch. I'm actually triggering both those samples at the same time. When this one hits, the other sample hits. I can even put a hi-hat or something there, or even another sound. Let's put like some sort of sound in there, maybe a horn. So you can hear that horn, and all the effects happen at the same time, those same sounds. Now watch this. We'll go back to the program, turn the sound a little bit. So you keep adding sounds into this section here, and the same effects that you have will also affect those other sample sounds that are in there. And this is known as zoning. You can have several samples in one zone. Got that, covered that. Yep. I think I have it all. That's it. It's time for you to go out and do the sampling thing. Take your time. Build your sample collection. What I do, and the reason why a lot of guys get really popular as producers, if you notice, Timbaland may only have like maybe 18 different drum sounds, but they're always the same rock solid drum sounds. He may change them up for certain records, but Dr. Dre, all these cats have their particular sound they like a lot. That gives you a signature. Get the signature to your sound. You know Kanye wants to pitch change that sound. You know Timbaland got those heavy beats and that almost complicated drum programming. Dre's simple in the pocket, like in the club. You can't get more simple than that. But it's so in the pocket, you gotta dance. You gotta find out what makes your tracks hot and rock with your samples. That way no one can steal it from you. And hide the secrets. Don't let nobody get a hold of them. The next one is artist sampling 2. We're gonna take samples and put them in the mixes and show them how we use samples in the recording process. You know what I'm saying? Look, I gotta make some notes for that one. I'll check in a few. Let me see now. Where my